Good afternoon. This is Improving Interpersonal Communication Project by me, Patrice Rosser. Next slide, please. This course and this project as well has given me the opportunity to closely examine my interpersonal communication style and to learn things about myself that was hard to believe once discovered. I learned the biases that I have as well as aspects of communication that I am ignorant to. I have learned that barriers exist that causes communication to become difficult, and both the talker and the listener, according to Peterson, may leave the situation feeling unheard. Through all of the discoveries, I have also learned effective techniques that aid in improving interpersonal communication styles. This project will walk you through my overarching goals that I have set for myself, and we will also look at behavioral blend and background and how these have affected my communication style as well. I will identify and provide solutions for internal and external noise pollution. Finally, I will develop a plan of action to improve my interpersonal communication style so that I may communicate, and my communication will be inviting for others, even if they're hesitant or have doubts. Next slide, please. My first overarching communication goal is to use techniques learned in this course and to aid in becoming a better listener so that I may hear and better understand the stories and situations of others. Next slide, please. My second overarching goal is to slow down and listen instead of planning what I'm going to say while I'm supposed to be listening. Next slide. My personal behavior blend was very interesting. This is expected of me is the SD blend, and this is me is the CIS blend. These two blends would make my behavioral personality, my communication style, somewhat, people may think that I'm supposed to be dominant and submissive at the same time. They expect me to be flexible but sometimes confusing. I have excellent people skills, but I'm often hard to read. I feel that I am in charge. I feel I have two different motivations pulling me in opposite directions. I think people want me to be in charge but feel that I'm expected to just be a servant behind the scenes. I respond best to those who need someone to tell them what to do with a kind heart and an understanding spirit. As far as my background, I am the middle child of 7 children. We were middle class, so to speak, but there was a huge lack of positive communication in my home. And I believe that because my family was so large, there was always lots of chaos and no one really listened to the other. There was a lot of screaming at each other and no real compassion was shown in relation to thoughts and expressions of other family members. I believe that because we were always trying to get a word in, I never learned to become an effective listener. My mother was always busy, and when I tried to communicate with her, she responded as if I was interrupting or getting in the way of her completing some other task. She would give me a look that screamed impatient, and she would often interrupt me or hurry me to get to my point. As a result of this, I am often anxious and pressed during a conversation. I feel that as if I have to control the conversation by offering advice and suggestions as opposed to just being an active listener. Up until this point in my life, I don't think I discovered my true identity. Next goal, please. Next slide. Most important aspect of communication is listening. Next slide. Listening, according to Stewart, requires more difficult mental processing than hearing alone. And it requires a tremendous amount of self-control. Listening is a skill that's learned. So in order to become an effective listener, we must learn techniques. Next slide, please. There are levels to listening. Level 1 is the empathetic listening. Listening, this is when you actively listen to someone and show interest in the talker and what they have to say. Level 2 is listening, but not really. And level 3 is listening in spurts. You just listen when you want and don't listen when you don't want to. Next slide, please. Socialization process. This is very important in helping someone to become an effective listener. Improving listening style by displaying more positive facial expressions. This is a very big goal in the socialization process. Next slide, please. Displaying an attitude of okayness. This is the one I really like. When you're listening and when you're talking, you just have that everyone's okay attitude. That's a very, very good technique used for listening. Next slide. We want to avoid what Burley Allen coins as the drama triangle. We don't want to get trapped in any back and forth arguing, drama, or anything like that. Next slide. Most importantly, listening to myself. That has to be done prior to me being able to listen to someone else effectively. Self-awareness. Number 1, the internal thought process. This process, according to Burley Allen, is when you develop in the habit of listening to what you are thinking is the first step in being more aware of why you feel and behave as you do. This awareness can lead to an understanding of the beliefs of which you live your life. These beliefs may result in the feeling which the internal forces control your life and that you do not control what you do and feel. Next slide. There's something called going somewhere and going nowhere. These are cycles when you're in the situation, your thought process kicks in, which leads to your behavior and ultimately your feelings. If you are listening to yourself, you are in charge of turning negative thought processes into positive ones by reevaluating the situation at hand and determining what is necessary to avoid negative thoughts and turn them into more positive ones that also makes you feel better inside. Next slide, please. There are multiple barriers that may affect the listening styles of individuals. There's negative affirmations expressed internally and negative affirmations expressed externally. There's also I always attitude, and labeling can also be a barrier. Next slide, please. As far as noise pollution, I have discovered some internal ones, which are prejudices, stereotyping, assumptions, etc. And also external ones, which can consist of any noise from machines, cars, people, just anything that's external. Next slide. Solutions to the noise pollution. For internal, we can put our biases aside and use more positive verbal and nonverbal language. For the external solutions, we can find a quiet environment to have a conversation in, maybe choose a quieter time of day, and use simple language that can be understood by both people. Next slide, please. I have made a plan of action to become a more effective listener. I will reduce the barriers, listen without offering advice or without interrupting. And according to Peterson, Why Don't We Listen Better, there's a talker-listener card, which has been very helpful when trying to have effective conversations with another person. And I plan to use this talker-listener card in every conversation that I have from now on. I will also avoid hurtful messages, aggression, and violence, because this never results in anything positive. When you're trying to communicate to someone or vice versa, they're trying to communicate to you, there's no need for hurtful messages, aggression, and violence. I will also try to improve the meta messages, which are basically my nonverbal communication style. I will avoid conflict. and I will bridge cultural differences by learning more about different cultures and learning techniques and skills that I can use to do so. And most importantly, I will continue to reevaluate myself, continue to look in the inside of me, and to continue to think about those biases and prejudices and stereotypes that I might have myself, and try to put those aside. Thank you for your time and listening to my presentation. The next 2 slides consist of bibliography references that I've used for this presentation. Thank you very much. Happy holidays to you and your family. Bye-bye.